Good morning, dear hearts. Please subscribe. We are on lesson 80, and that is a real bird that you're hearing out there if you hear it. Today's lesson, and congratulations, this is our final lesson in this section. We start our second review tomorrow. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Obvious continuation from yesterday. But yesterday, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. We only were referring to one problem. But now let me recognize my problems, which were plural. I think I have many problems, which is what we discussed yesterday. It's part of my story. My story is filled with problems that I believe are real. But when I recognize that indeed there's really only one problem and it's already been solved, it is the road, the opening for me to find my salvation, my happiness, my freedom. Today's lesson begins, if you are willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. Salvation thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding it has been solved. We have a refrain in today's lesson, as we've had in several of our others recently. One problem, one solution is today's refrain. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact and you are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation, for freedom, for the entire sonship. Your only problem has been solved. We have one problem and it has been indeed resolved, because in truth it wasn't real to begin with. It was an imaginary problem. It was illusory, but oh, it felt so very, very real. In a couple of our previous lessons, before we started our first review, in lesson 26, which my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability, for going into our practice, it was any problem as yet unsettled that tends to recur in your thoughts during the day is a suitable subject for that practicing for that day. Anytime we think we have a problem and it's going to keep recurring in our thoughts, we're going to believe that it is real, and it is just the repetition. We learn through repetition, and we have to have the repetition of realizing the problems are not real. In lesson 41, definitely a favorite, that God goes with me wherever I go, we had in paragraph 2 that the separated ones have invented many cures for what they believe to be the ills of the world, the problems of all the world. But the one thing they do not question is the reality of the problem. We haven't, up until now, questioned the reality of, are we really separated from God? If I don't question it, if I don't actually bring that to awareness, then it will remain a problem. Yet its effects cannot be cured because the problem is not real. I have to realize that this isn't a real problem, even though I have thought for many, many eons that it is. But I have to realize that that is not a real problem. All of these things that I think are my problems, part of my story, there has only been one problem ever. And that has been my belief in separation. And as soon as I have the awareness of that, then all of my problems will be brought to the answer, the solution, the resolution, the resolution. Lesson 50, I'm sustained by the love of God. And this is such an important lesson for us, and it brings us so many of the answers that we have been seeking for. Here is the answer to every problem that will confront you today and tomorrow and throughout time. In this world, you believe you are sustained by everything but God. Your faith is placed in the most trivial and insane symbols. And they're all things that we have imbued with magical powers. But the one thing that we haven't considered, that the answer to every problem is the fact that I am loved and sustained and cherished by the love of God. It is not any of these things outside of myself that will sustain me. It is not any of these things outside of myself that will solve my problems. My problems only will be resolved when I recognize what they really are. And I cannot do that. I cannot find the answer until I have the awareness of the problem. And back into lesson 80, it says, you have accepted salvation for yourself by bringing the problem to the answer, and you can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. That is that awareness that must come first. And when the awareness comes first, we can easily say one problem, one solution, one buster. And lesson 80 tells us that all of our problems are the same, no matter how many we think they are, no matter what forms we believe they are taking. The one problem is our belief that we are separate. We are not part of the all that is. When we realize that we are, then all of the other problems that seem to arise each and every day, each and every hour, month by month by month, will be lessened, and then eventually will simply disappear. And we will go through each day with the recognition we are sustained by the love of God, and all of our problems indeed have already been solved. Just to go back to the lesson for a moment, recognize that your problems have been solved. Recognize that you are out of conflict, free and at peace. Above all, remember that you have one problem, and that problem has one solution. Practicing for today truly is, again, repetition. We learn by repetition. We form those little new pathways for a new thought system. So when there's any specific problem that might arise, quickly tell yourself, let me recognize this problem. This problem has been solved. And let us be determined not to collect any more grievances today. No more grief fences, no more resentments, no more judgments. Let us be determined to be free of problems that in truth do not exist. And this means, the means is simple honesty. I'm laughing at him. Do not deceive yourself about what the problem is, and you must recognize that indeed it has been solved. So that's it for today. Just let us go through today smiling, not collecting any more grievances, not building up that fence. Don't add anything to the walls. Let the clouds simply blow away, and we will find ourselves in such a happy space and a peaceful place, free of conflict, knowing that indeed all of our problems, all of my problems have been solved. And that's it for today. Tomorrow we start our next review. There will be 2 review lessons each day. And I will, of course, talk about the introduction to the review. And smile and laugh and breathe and let everything go, and pray that this recognition in your mind will touch so many others as well. All of the separated ones, the ones who are not quite awake, let our minds connect with theirs. Namaste.